104.9 FM, Denver Open Radio. Thank you for making us part of your Atlanta commute and your Denver routine. Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast, whatever the time and whatever the place, you are welcome here. I'm your host, Michael Clausen, and let me tell you, you've tuned in at the perfect time because this episode is one you don't want to miss. And to those listening live online on X and YouTube, please share this with your friends and networks. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming a friend back to 5 a.m. podcast. His life story reads like an adventure novel, and his conversations feel like that wisdom that you needed from your trusted mentor. Jim is one of North America's most sought-after speakers on workplace culture and combining real-world CEO experience with candid stories about resilience and team building. His latest book, Building Men, has touched the lives of many across the nation with a powerful message of perseverance and purpose. Now, maybe your day today feels like that one where you're going to throw the towel in on that big dream. Well, Jim has a message for you. Today is not the day to quit. Today is the day for one more step towards your goals. As has been said, you can always quit tomorrow, but today we encourage you to take one more step. Now, perhaps you're headed home from the night shift, you're exhausted, but you're still holding aspirations that might seem impossibly far away. Well, Jim is going to share his insights from his journey of founding, scaling, and selling multiple businesses, and how to face that seemingly insurmountable wall between you and your goals. So, whether you're an entrepreneur, a team leader, or someone simply trying to build a better life for their family, I promise you, you will find something valuable in our conversation today. Now, be sure to share this with your friends and networks. And I got to say, Jim Tracy, a huge thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, Michael, Atlanta, and Denver, I am just absolutely thrilled to be here, and I'm grateful that to be invited back. This is a wonderful program and an opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jim. We are glad to have you back on the 5 a.m. podcast to share your experience and encouragement with our Atlanta and Denver listeners, and of course those on the interwebs. Now, your book, Building Men, which is good, and I have it right here for our viewers at home. For the radio listeners, I'm just holding a picture up, but we'll tell you how to get in touch with Jim a little bit later on. Your book, Building Men, starts with this quote from William Wallace: "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world."
Mm.
And you open your book on building up men talking about the significant life lessons imparted to you by the women in your life. Can you talk to those moms and grandmas out there listening to us as they navigate maybe their commute to and from work? Maybe they're working the night shift. Can you talk a little bit to the power and the impact that they have?
When I first started writing this book, the life lessons that came to me were largely masculine because I lived in male-dominated businesses. I quickly realized that the other people who had the most significant impact were the women who actually kept me in line.
Wow.
And the first one of those that I spoke about is my mom. And my dad and I kind of existed in separate lives. He was busy working and this and that and the other thing. But my mom, who had 8 kids, always had time and always was there. And so her impact in my life is so significant. That's literally the first person that I write about in the book. The second is my wife Sarah, who also has a Herculean task keeping me in line.
Yes.
and also my daughters, because when you live a life that is centered around faith, and you take an opportunity to talk about that, all of a sudden you've raised these women who feel very comfortable holding you accountable to the expectations that you have set. And so their impact on my life is one that really does celebrate the hand that rocks the cradle, because they form and create leaders and business owners, and everything that is good about a man was shaped in large part by the people who actually raised him.
That's right.
And the women,
Now,
yeah.
we're going to get to the fathers and the grandfathers a little bit later, but I wanted to include some chivalry in this conversation. And of course, I've already mentioned the title of the book, Building Men. I got to ask you, what do you hope that this book does for your future for the futures of your granddaughters?
Wow. The book is as 20 chapters, I guess you'd say, and
Yeah.
each chapter is a character trait that I learned
Hmm.
from someone else. That low tuition learning
Yes.
that is impressed upon you by someone else. And so, if you look at those character traits,
Yeah.
I would hope that they would, as if they're looking to unite in marriage with somebody, that they would look at that person and they would say, that's an interesting character trait you have. I wonder if it's in the book. or if it's not there, maybe it would provide an avenue where
Mm.
they could learn from the lessons that I learned.
Wow.
So I just I hope that, especially as I told you before, Michael, I've
Hmm.
got I've got twin girls that I've not yet met.
Yes.
They're not born yet. And I'm 66 years old. If I get hit by a bus this afternoon, here's a way that they're going to be able to get to know me a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's great. Well, and I
yeah.
think of those entrepreneurs that are working their way through life, and they have that character. They've built that character. I think I'll give a shout out to my friend Marty. We were high
Mm,
school friends, maybe sometimes enemies, but iron sharpening iron. And I think about the character that he and others like him and yourself have built over the years that have really put them in the position that they're in now. And I know that you've bootstrapped multiple family businesses. You've merged them with larger organizations. What are those unique challenges and rewards of running that family business compared to other business models?
Well, one of the things that I talk to people about a lot is to know why they're in business, not just the what is a great question. I mean,
Mm.
if what is a product or a service, it should be really good. It should solve a pain point and help someone. But the why is what keeps you going. And
Mm.
so, as I look at the entrepreneurial journey,
Yeah.
which by any measure can be incredibly difficult,
Yeah.
but if your why is correct, my why when we started Legacy Telecommunications was to keep my son safe. Because we were climbing cellular towers, and the place where he was doing it wasn't doing a very good job of keeping people safe because they had no knowledge. But as we sat down at the dinner table one night, and I was telling him, yeah, it's a good idea for you to quit your job. He finally got tired and he said, if you think you're so smart, let's just do it ourselves. And wow, there's a challenge. And if your excuse me, if your why is to keep your son safe, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So know your why and let that be the thing that drives you.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Now, in the introduction today, we mentioned the idea that today is not the day to quit. Can
Yeah.
you expand on this concept and maybe share a personal story of where that perseverance and persistence led to maybe an unexpected breakthrough?
Yeah. Well, there is a chapter in the book. It's a learned behavior perseverance. So you're going to find that in one of the chapters.
Yes.
But on a personal level, um, there are many times that, especially in the early days, where it would have been pretty easy to just roll it up and say, we this was a good try.
Mm.
It's comfortable to have um, a job and a pension and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's two sides to this coin. One is knowing when not to quit, but the other one, I had a great job and I was flying a lot. That week, in essence, I flew from Seattle to Salt Lake to Phoenix to Chicago
Wow.
and to DC, and I was returning via San Francisco to Narita in Japan. And I looked down at my watch over I could see the lights of Chicago. And I looked at my watch for my really important 35-year-old first class seat. And I looked down at Chicago and I thought, I'm missing my daughter's swim meet. I quit.
Wow.
And that was the appropriate time to say, you have to measure what's important. And so what I measured was my family. And in much the same way, when you're running a business and you're encouraging people to persevere or not to quit, that why really is going to enter in. But it's always easy to quit. But it's always as easy to just postpone that, just to make a commitment. I'm gonna put one foot in front of the other until I get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there are many times when we were running to the mailbox seeing if somebody had mailed us a check. And I tell a lot of stories about my wife racing me to the mailbox, and we founded another company called SENL. It stands for Seldom Early, Never Late. And we would get to the mailbox, and sometimes there would be a check in there that would be an early pay from a customer that never early pays, and we made payroll, and we didn't quit. So the SENL stands for God. God is seldom early, but he's never late.
Yes.
And so as I walk through, don't quit. There's 1,000 stories that surround virtually every aspect of the business. But even in life, perseverance is one of those one of those things that you never want to walk away from.
Right. Wow. That's worth getting up and combing your hair this morning, ladies and gentlemen, for sure. And but
I don't need a comb, brother.
that's right. Well, maybe just fine tune the beard or
Okay.
yeah, get some caffeine into your system. But ladies and gentlemen, as maybe you're one of those listeners that we have that you feel like you're facing this enormous wall. And you might be hearing what we're talking about and saying, fine, I get it. Okay, I could take one more step, but I keep stubbing my toe on this, what I think is this enormous wall between me and where I want to get my family to, or my ideas to. Is there maybe some practical advice that you would offer someone who feels overwhelmed by that perceived distance between their current reality and their dreams?
Facts are a lot more important than feelings. And if you go back and re-examine the why you're having that dream, one of the things that I do now, we establish the Culture Revival Blueprint, and we go into businesses and we help them return to their why. Everybody in business talks about growth, and they talk about scaling and building, and then they get this business to a place where they don't recognize it and they don't like it very much anymore. And that's because they lost their why. And that can happen on an exit. When you invite other people to invest into your business, it changes it irrevocably. But you still have an opportunity to return to that why, because that's who brung you to the dance. And so if your obstacles are preventing you from getting to the destination where you should be. And it doesn't matter whether for me, college was impossible. It was absolutely impossible. I was a terrible student. I had a learning disability, and it was a math learning disability. And my father and my future father-in-law looked at me and he said, where are you going to college? And my immediate thought was anywhere you want, as long as I can marry your daughter. And so, that impossibility became an inconvenience. And all of a sudden, there is nothing on the planet that you were intended to do that you cannot do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what it's going to take.
Yeah. Now, speaking of your whys, I know that you have a wonderful quiver full of grandchildren and arrows, as they're referred to in the book of Proverbs. And you've earned that nickname Grampian. And you were recently at a race with your
Uh-huh.
grandchildren, correct? So I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you about this role of yours as a grandfather. How has that influenced your approach to mentoring younger business owners or maybe just the younger generation in the workplace?
Yeah. Um, Again, when I open the book, I talk about my grandfather and the impact that he had on me. And my grandson Wesley, I'm not bold enough to name myself the Grampian. It came from my
Yes.
grandson Wesley. So I credit for those guys for the gifts that they gave me. One, teaching me how to be an intentional grandfather, which
Mm.
I got to work really hard. I got to work harder at it, especially since there are a large quiver of
Yes.
grandkids, and some of them are not in perfect family situations. So I got to step in as best I can wherever I can.
Yeah.
Um, and and as I look at, I mean, I'm 66 years old. There's no reason that I have to go out and train and do a terrain race.
Yes. Yes.
The muddy run was literally crawling through mud puddles and climbing things and doing stuff that maybe 66-year-olds with a little more wisdom shouldn't be doing. But I did get to do it with 5 grandchildren and a son-in-law, and
Yeah.
so I don't. My objective was not to win the race. It was to share the experience.
Yes.
And if you look at the opportunities that we have as, I mean, our new generation is coming up, and we have more opportunities to connect with them
Yeah.
than any generation before this. I mean, and sometimes it's going to be electronic. And if I hear a grandpa say, "Well, I'm not going to be on that Facebook," I automatically think, well, that's where the people who need you are. And
Yeah.
so let's glean all the good that we can from it, and let's purge all the bad that we can and help them to do the same by our example. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess in a roundabout way, I'm crediting my grandpa and I'm
Yes.
crediting my grandson Wes
That's good.
and I'm crediting my wife because it's way harder to be a grandma than it is to be a grandpa. We get to be the cool guy who does fun stuff, and
Yes.
they have to teach and
Right.
do some of that other stuff.
Well, I was just thinking about a rabbit trail then based on this conversation. And it's so if there's a young man listening, maybe he hasn't had a lot of role models, maybe he's
Mm,
had a few challenges, um, and he's listening to this and he's thinking, man, I want to be a great dad.
yeah.
Do you have some advice for him?
Wow. There are 20 character lessons that I learned, and I made this book intentionally positive. I could have written a tell-all that
Yeah.
had negative chapters in, but I'm not choosing to go that direction. Some of these mentors chose me,
Mm.
but I chose a lot of them. And I did so. There's a chapter in there. There's a guy by the name of Leroy Lindell. And uh, I went into his business one day and he hired me. And I looked at him and I thought, wow, he's really wise. He's really accomplished. He's very well spoken. He's a gentleman. Everything about him is something that I would want to aspire to be.
Mm.
Well, at that point, you decide, I'm going to listen now to him. I'm going to hitch my wagon to everything he says. And I have 100 stories about him,
Yeah.
and they were all because I made myself available to him, not necessarily he made himself available to me.
Mm. Wow.
Choose your mentors
Wow.
by what they live, by
Hmm.
what they are, by what they can teach you, by what you can, by all the grab all those morsels you can grab, and make
Yes.
sure they're if you're a young man and you're looking for a mentor, go find a man of character first.
Yeah.
A good character is gonna cure a whole lot of other problems.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I believe it was Mr. Lindell that said, if it's to be, it's up to me."
If it's to be, it's up to me. That's
Love
correct.
that. Love that one. So no, we can steer the car back off the rabbit trail.
I
Uh,
love rabbit trails, man. We're
Me
good.
too. Okay, that's great. And so today's speaking of the young men, the young women, that multi generational workforce, do you think that there's some big misconceptions that managers have about leading a team with diverse ages in it?
Oh, they're huge. They're huge. I gave a talk the other day and I was talking to a very, very wide span of people. And and I talked about it in terms of the generations. And if you look at the generation, the true greatest generation is born like 1901 to 1927. That's what they truly call the greatest generation. And they were the parents of the silent generation. The silent
Mm,
generation we know is the World War II folks.
yeah.
And you know what they said about them? They said they have really, really bad music because it went from orchestras to big bands. They
Huh.
dress funny. They're rebellious. They are all these characterizations that said they're different from us, which necessitates that they're probably bad. And they begat the baby boomers. And you know what they said about us baby boomers? They said they said they're hippies. They wear those funny clothes. Their hair's too long and their music's awful.
Hmm.
And they begat Gen X. And what did we say about them? Oh, that rap music and the way they can't get out of bed and they blah 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 blah. And what did they do? They then came Gen Z and when they said, "Oh, their music is awful," and it goes on and on
Uh-huh.
and on and on. It's the same tune
Yeah.
with the same audience. And what's happening is you see old people get curmudgeony. That's my goal in life. I don't want to be a curmudgeon grandpa. I want to
Yeah.
be a grampian.
Right.
And so when we talk about the generations, I think it's really, really critical for us to look. If you look at Gen X,
Hmm.
Gen X is those people that we called worthless. They are now running the major corporations.
Yeah.
They are now influencing the major religions. They are now the powerhouse of the workforce. And they are crafting and training Gen Zs. And after that, Gen Alphas, and now even betas are on the horizon
Yes.
because that generation's born starting 2025, and they're
Wow.
18 years away from entering the workforce.
Yeah.
So the message is let's let's look at that generation and say not what's wrong with them, but what are they good at.
Yes.
And
That's
as
right.
I look at the Gen Zs, for instance, what a physically capable, remarkably resilient. They're the first generation that knew that didn't know what it was like to grow up without the Encyclopedia Britannica in their hand.
Yes. Right.
They have information flow that's unceasing, and they're better at getting it than any generation prior. It's incredible. And their work ethic is remarkable. They just want to be able to have that shut off switch in a
Right.
lot of cases that says, "Wow, I'm going to have." I mean, the boomers are known for having no work life balance. I mean,
Yes.
guilty as charged. But we can all get better at it.
Yes.
They're look at what they're doing. It's crazy. It's so cool.
It is. It's exciting. And it's all in our perspective of how we look at things.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind the folks listening or watching that you can get Jim's earlier conversation on 5 a.m. podcast at 5ampodcast.com. And Jim, how do the people get in touch with you?
Well, on LinkedIn, I've got a pretty big presence. On YouTube, they can go to the Grampian, Grampion, or thegrampian.com. And I just love interacting with all the folks who read the book,
Mm-hmm.
or if they go on Amazon and buy Building Men, or wherever you get your books. Barnes and Noble has some terrific reviews on it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so thrilled. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
That's good. And yes, you are. So, Jim, we know here at 5 a.m. Podcast that we've got listeners with big dreams. We want to make sure that they feel encouraged to take that step each day towards their achievements. Can you talk about the price the dream requires? And if somebody feels like it's too futile, that they're worn down, that they're tired, there is something else that can be said maybe to put some wind in their sails.
Yeah. Well, number one, the dream. If your dream is to, I mean, my dream was to have a family, and
Mm.
I dialed it in. I'm going to have. I mean, I came from a family 8 kids, and so I dialed it in. Like, went to my wife and said, "Here's how we're going to scale it. We're going to have one boy, one girl. We're going to stop there. It's going to be a perfect pigeon pair, and blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah blah." And then all of a sudden, my wife comes to me and she says, "You know, we got a big empty house, and we're just turned 40, and I think we ought to make use of it and adopt." And I'm on the verge of, I'm 6 months from being an empty nester.
Yeah.
Talk about a balloon pop. And then this is in the days where internet wasn't that prevalent. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had internet at the office and not at home. And so I found this website called adoptuskids.org. And it really was, there was Bruce Willis and Laura Bush were on an advertisement together. And
Wow.
you couldn't find an odder couple
Yes.
than Die Hard and the librarian.
Yes.
So I sent her that, and she came home one morning, and after spending the night on that website, she said, "I found the kids that I think God wants to adopt."
Wow.
My vision, my dream of a family changed.
Huh.
And I am uniquely blessed for it. So, number one, be a little bit flexible. Number two, if your business, if your dream is business, it's kind of how people identify me.
Mm.
You have to be ready, willing, and able to look at the price you're going to pay, and that involves number one, figure out what problem you're going to solve for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
figure out how you're going to sell it to them, and make it so valuable that they want to take their hard-earned money and exchange it for your product or service. And then if you can't sell it, then figure out how to sell it, figure out how you're going to solve their pain,
Yeah.
and then find a way to bring it to market so that you don't encumber yourself and your family with a boatload full of debt.
Yeah.
And I was I was so grateful because my son and I, we didn't we used all of our savings, all of our retirement, all of everything we had, and but what we didn't use is a bank.
Mm.
And we were spenders, or we were savers instead of spenders. And there's a lesson right there when we came to close on the business, when we actually exited the business for the very first time. They
Yes.
said, "Hey, this is a cash-free, debt-free sale," and I'm like, "Okay." And they said, "But so you need to get us like the list of your creditors so we can make sure they get paid off, so you don't go willy-nilly and take all this
Mm-hmm.
money that we're going to give you and not pay the folks who got it coming." And I'm like, "Well, we don't really have any debt. We figured, the banker came to us once. They said, you need to get a credit line from about $600,000 so you can grow your business." And I'm like, I looked at Ryan and I said, "Do you know what would happen if someone gave me $600,000? I would spend it. I can find really good reasons to spend it."
Yes.
And you know what happened then? They would say, "You have to pay it back. And you have to pay it back. Plus, you got to give us a bunch more money to
Oh,
boot."
yes.
And I'm like, I'd rather be my own bank. And there's a way to do that, and it's to be conservative with your spending. Make sure you got needs that
Mm-hmm.
you're filling for your customers, and to take care of your people. Ryan and I missed quite a few payrolls,
Wow.
but for ourselves, not for our people.
Yeah.
and then we would save a whole bunch of money so that we could, when time came to pay those folks, it it was
Yeah.
a sure thing. Yeah.
Right.
So
Now, speaking of the chapters in your book, I wanted to ask you about Major Tracy.
mm,
Um, so, for the people that haven't read it, and without giving away the punchline, what can you
yeah.
tell us about Major?
Well, Major's my youngest son, and his this chapter, the name of this chapter is Courage, and I don't know how to not give away the punchline.
Yeah.
I
Well,
learned
maybe just
about
go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I learned about military service as a dad who was longing to protect his son. And he was in Afghanistan, and he was in a place where special forces, frankly, went to get their combat infantry badge, their CIB. And the reason that they went there is that they exchanged lead with the enemy virtually every day, and not in a good way, in a very dangerous way. And there were many times where I was on the phone with him, and he kind of worked the off shift on securing this village stabilization platform. So there's 24 U.S. Army servicemen, 12 of them Green Beret and 12 Army, and they're stuck in this little burg in Afghanistan that's right where four of the 9/11 hijackers came from. It's Taliban Central, and they fight every day. And many times I had Major say, "Gotta go," and the only thing I can hear in the background is guns being fired. Love you, Dad. Gotta go. And that, for me, hearing him run towards gunfire was a portrait in. You
Yeah.
can't ever convince me that someone doing that wouldn't be afraid,
Right.
but they went anyway.
Yeah.
And so the chapter on courage highlights his uh, his sacrifice for our country.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you mentioned in the book that you had thought, hey, I'll get you connected with the Coast Guard.
yeah,
And can you talk? How did you feel when he kind of called that audible and
yeah.
and said, "No, I'm gonna go in this direction, pops."
Yeah, Major is a very gifted swimmer, and
Hmm.
he played water polo. So
Whoa.
The Coast Guard had designs on him, and they were like, "We're gonna like." It's a very, very honorable thing to serve your country.
Yes.
I thought it would be more honorable to serve saving lives than taking
Yes.
lives.
Yeah.
And he thought it would be cooler to go kick indoors of bad guys.
Yeah.
And so we had an appointment scheduled for the Coast Guard, and the day before that appointment, he said, "Yeah, Dad, I met with the recruiter today, and I enlisted." And they said, your ASVAB is like you're off the charts. The test you take to determine your job in the
Hmm.
military is like really high." And they said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to get bad guys." And so
Wow.
we got a soldier. Yeah, we got a
Can
soldier. I'm so proud of him,
yeah.
and his service to our country.
Can you talk a little bit about his life before he was adopted?
Mm. Yeah, I think if I look at Major's life before he was adopted, I got a folder that's like this, like an inch and a half thick. In that folder was the interaction between the state that
Hmm.
had taken him away from his birth parents and um, seven times he was
Wow.
removed from the home prior to having their parental rights terminated. So
Wow.
I read one of those things, and it's the kind of story that makes you tear up, and what is actually a perfect lesson on how not to care for children.
Right.
So his life was one where he was even as a baby, he was around drugs and just bad company.
Hmm.
So he didn't really have a chance in life, and then God saw fit to put him in our house, and we did our best to make sure that we were trying to be good role models for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
want to ask you then, kind of in line with this, What is that source of that light in your eyes and the spark in your life?
Well, when I was 28 years old, I was my only goal was to make money. All I cared about was it was my success, and it was my success, my money, my and
Yeah.
everything in my life was subservient to that, and it was really about scoring. I really wanted to make the big score. I was committed. I was going to be in six figures in salary
Yeah.
before I was 30. That was my focus. And my wife went to a church, and she changed.
Hmm.
And her life became a picture of service to a guy who was solely focused to the point where it made him not very nice. And
Hmm.
that's me.
Wow.
And one night I asked her, I said, so, do you love this Jesus character or me more? You gotta figure it out, because I'm not liking being second fiddle. I didn't sign up for this when you married me. And she said, Jim, you've never been number one. You were always number two. I was number one, you were number two, and now Jesus is number one, you're still number two, and I'm number three. I'm the one who changed positions. And I was like she was so kind to me. I couldn't even have a good fight with her. and and her countenance
Hmm.
won me over. And one night I just said, God, if you're real, I'm going to make a deal with you. In my arrogance, I'm trying to make a deal with God,
Yes,
right?
as you do. Yeah.
And in His grace, He said, "Okay, Jim, you big loser, I'm gonna bring you into my family."
Wow.
And it was a life transformation for me. And at that time, I committed my life to a Savior,
Hmm.
and everything has been different since that moment.
Wow. Now,
Everything.
you you've talked, and that's very evident in the conversations that you've had before and after the record button online. When we get a chance to talk, um, you've always talked about um, something beyond yourself and that impact on family. And we've talked about the family impact and the parents and the grandparents, the children, the grandchildren. But I would love to hear about Pastor Ed, because you write about him in the book too. And
Yeah.
uh, it's tell us about this fellow.
Pastor Ed Bulkley was kind of the first pastor that I ever have
Hmm.
that I ever had who felt like a father figure, a religious father figure rather than an authority figure.
Mm. Hmm.
Coming from a Catholic background, I had a full grasp of the authority figure.
Right.
um, uh, and when I went, the first Sunday I went in, and I saw Pastor Ed up on stage. We were in a school, and I thought, this is really weird. I'm a church kid, and here I am at a high school, a public high school that they lease for their church service, and this emotional guy is up on stage, and I'm just freaking out, and I'm gonna turn and burn, never to return.
Yeah.
And his authentic um, affection for Jesus and the things of God is what won me over. Is a lot like Sarah. When Sarah was kind to me, even when I didn't deserve it, it won me over. Ed, his love for Jesus was so real and so authentic, and sometimes emotional, that I looked at that and I thought, what, that thing that he's got, I want that.
Yeah.
And so he also was the really one of the fathers of the biblical counseling movement in North America. It's just crazy how cool, what a
Wow.
what a great guy he is.
Wow, that's great. Now, we've mentioned rabbit trails already once,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to talk about the rabbit trail in terms of interesting fruit that they can produce. And you've shared, or can you share a
Yeah.
memorable rabbit trail from your career that led to an unexpected opportunity?
Um, when we first got in the tower business, the reason we got in the tower business is that I did it when I was a kid, but I didn't do
Mm,
communication towers. I did power lines
mm.
and substations and things like that. And so there was a romance there that my son had never
Okay.
seen, uh, but knew about. And so when he went into the tower business, of course, it was to like make a living, but he
Yeah.
had that romantic view.
Yeah.
Well, then he brought me in. I mean, he really started the partnership with his challenge to me.
Yes.
and and the first thing I needed to do was find out what I was in for. And
Mm,
so I joined the National Association of Tower Erectors. And I did not know how providential that would be. That I would at some point become the leader of that organization. It's chairman of the board, and then there's so many things that happen when you, it's when you serve on a board like that, you really have to do it for the right reasons.
mm, mhm.
But when you do it for the right reasons, the fruit of that is incredibly good things can happen to you. Not guaranteed, but if you do things for the right reason and people
Mhm.
see that, then they trust you. And when people
Yeah.
trust you, good things happen. I don't know how to say it, but one of the things that became the fruit of that, so that one little decision is I need to find out more about towers,
Yeah.
led me to able to spend literally when someone gets hurt or dies within 7 days, we send them a quite significant check
Mm.
to help them get through this little period. But we also found out we're pretty good at raising money, so
Yeah.
we also developed a scholarship program, and and so this rabbit trail leads. Jim went to Nate, and Jim served Nate, and he tried to do it for the right reason. That founded the Tower Family Foundation,
Mm.
and that led to helping people, and that led to raising gobs of money, and that led to a scholarship program. And my youngest grandson received a scholarship from the Tower Family Foundation
Wow.
um, to go to school at he's going to play on a partial football scholarship at Southern Nazarene University in
Wow.
Bethany, Oklahoma. Go Crimson Storm! And I'm so excited. But if you do things for the right reason, you
Yeah.
talked about kind of stuff coming back.
Yes.
Well, he got a scholarship. Actually, a very nice scholarship
Hmm.
to help pay for his school. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's great. So, one of the things about rabbit trails, they're always at a crossroads.
Yeah.
So, for our listeners who might be standing at a crossroad in their lives or their careers or their business dreams and aspirations,
Mm.
what process do you recommend for making difficult decisions with confidence?
Okay. Like most of it, I learned it from somebody else.
Okay.
um, uh, my son Ryan and I were sitting in a meeting, and there were a bunch of people on the other side of the table, and a father and son on this side
Yeah.
of the table. And during that meeting, one of the clients' people was a young man who kind of wanted to make a name for himself.
Okay.
So he was going to fire off some tough questions. And one of the questions that he asked to Ryan. He's like, well, how do you ensure quality control, or how do how are you going to make sure that your people like do
Mm.
the right thing for our company? And Ryan said, well, we train our people to do the right thing. Simple as that. Just do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't a good enough answer for this young fella. And so he said, well, what about when they don't know the right thing to do? And Ryan said, and this is part of the wisdom of growing up with, I mean, I grew up with my son, if you want to look at it realistically. But he said, then we just ask them to do the best right thing. Well, that still wasn't good enough for this young fella. And he said, well, what if they don't know the best right thing? He said, well, we give them a phone. And we
Yeah.
call and we ask them to call us, and then we'll coach them on how to choose the best right thing.
Nice.
And if you're at a crossroads, it's not always obvious what the perfect decision is. But I think it's pretty obvious what the best right thing is. And I
Yeah.
think Ryan, in his youth, exhibited wisdom that was beyond his years. So
Mm.
if you're sitting at a crossroads, um, sometimes I talk to lots of churches, and they're like, well, young people at the end of that, they come to me and they're like, well, I don't know what God's will for my life. And I'm like, well, I know what it is. It's like you should bring glory to Him, and you should be faithful, and
Yes.
you should have fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes that crossroads is just that simple. Be fruitful, be faithful, have fun,
Yes.
and do it for the right reason.
The foundational character traits that a leader or maybe a dad or a prospective father should look to cultivate.
Mm. One of the most um, overused words is also one of the most least used muscles.
Okay.
And whether you're a businessman, whether you're a father, whether you're a grandpa, whether you're a mom, um, whether you're struggling, whether you're thriving, um, if you practice integrity,
Hmm.
so and if you look at somebody's website, that especially companies, they advertise, we have integrity.
Yeah.
Well, what does that look like? I mean, how does that play out in your daily life? Well, it's doing what you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
And if you say you're going to be somewhere at 7
Yeah.
and you're there at 7:01, you just punched a hole in your integrity. But
Yes.
if you say you're going to be there at 7 and you're there at quarter to 7, you laid a foundational brick in your
Yeah.
integrity. If you tell someone, there's a really cool story. It's held over my head all the time. We built a cell site on a water tank in Spokane,
Okay.
Washington, on Argonne Street, and we needed that job to stay kind of in business. It
Keep
was
those
that
checks
close.
coming in.
It was that
Yeah.
close. And so I got very aggressive with the bidding, and I was like, Ryan, good news, we got a job. Like, we're going to keep people working. And I sacrificed a lot of money to do it.
Hmm.
Well, what I didn't know is that this job that I got for like 50 grand was going to cost us like 130.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we kept everybody working. We kept the payroll made, and it allowed us to, we used up a lot of our savings to fund that job.
Yeah.
And so as I look back on that, it was a critical point. And I promised our guys that I would do whatever it took to keep them working.
Wow.
And it wasn't hard because I just did what I said I was going to do.
Hmm.
So, uh, was it difficult? Yes. The execution was incredibly difficult. The
Yeah.
decision was not hard.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's commendable. I One of the phrases that I've often said here on 5 a.m. podcast, and it's not my phrase, I just read it or heard it somewhere, of leaders are readers, and Building Men is not your first book. You've got a few others under your belt. Uh, what book would you recommend to someone who is starting out on their dream? They know the cubicle of the 9 to 5 is
Mm.
not where they see themselves in 25 years.
Wow. Great question. Um, uh, I can't list one, so I'm going to just give you two. Okay.
Sure.
The first
Yes.
one, the first one is The Ethics of Excellence. It's
Mm.
a little teeny book. I've carried one in my briefcase for 20 years.
Wow.
It's by Price Pritchett. It's $10. You can go find it on online at his website. He's passed now, but The Ethics of Excellence
Okay.
is something that every time I get confused on what to do next, what to do. I simply go back, and I've sat at a truck stop. I've sat in a first class airline seat.
Mm.
I've sat at a customer's lobby, and every time I need to kind of refocus, I go to the Ethics of Excellence. And it is a book that is just it has a principle on the left-hand side, and it's got an explanation of that principle on the right page. And
Wow.
it is beautiful and elegant in its simplicity.
Wow.
And so I would recommend that, number one. Number two, there's a book called The Management Methods of Jesus. And if you want to talk about an entrepreneurial journey, let's take a an itinerant carpenter,
Yes.
um, apprentice, and let's have him start a movement
Hmm.
using 12 uneducated people
Yes.
and transform the world. In order to do that, many lessons that he taught. Now,
Yeah.
these are biblical lessons, but they're not from the Bible. They're from interpreting things like delegation. Now, did Jesus do it all? Nope. He just got other guys to pick up the mantle and do it. And
Yeah.
so delegation is one of those beautiful lessons. And you can look at what he did and you go, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And it's impactful. And you don't have to be you don't have to be a holy roller Bible thumper in order to learn from it. I would encourage everybody who's in business or who
Hmm.
wants to be in business to go get the Management Methods of Jesus. And I can't
Wow.
even tell you the author. I can't remember right now. But
Okay. Well,
I've
we'll
given away so many copies of that book
okay.
that it's pretty cool.
So it's the management method of Jesus, is that right?
The Management Methods of Jesus. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
And the
well,
other one is The Ethics of Excellence by Price Pritchett.
gotcha. Well, those
Yeah.
those look like excellent books. Now, how about this not this is not asking which is your favorite child, but which is your do you have a favorite book, or do you have a book, maybe it fluctuates depending on who you're talking to at a time,
Do I have a favorite book?
like that you've written, one of your books?
Oh, Building Men. I think um, Building Men is the one that is the window to my mind.
Okay.
It also is the path to get to my mind came from my heart.
Hmm.
And it's just a collection of stories about people who impacted me and spent time they didn't have, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Like there's four guys in that book that were born in 1925. And if you're sitting there thinking I'm never going to learn anything from some old goat born in
Yep.
1925. Well, number one, you can't learn from them anymore personally because they're all gone,
Yes.
but you can look at what I learned from them, and my son learned that from me, and now my grandson, who is I've got my first grandson's headed for a wedding in September,
Wow.
and
Congratulations.
he read this book and then called me and he said, I learned so much about you
Wow.
through the stories about you from the lens that you used to write stories of other people.
Wow.
And so, in many ways, and now there's another one publishing next February,
Okay.
and it's the name of this book is Management by Cliche:
Ah.
Business Proverbs That Worked. And it really is a collection of timeless little clips
Okay.
where the genius of it comes from that book about the ethics of excellence,
Wow.
because I put a proverb on the
Yep.
left side and I
Ah.
explain the proverb on the right side. And I just most of those proverbs come from other people. There are some that I some phrases I coined
Yes.
that people at Legacy would call them Jimisms.
Good.
but yeah, that one is good. That one was a lot of fun as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, just as we're wrapping things up here, a parting thought, as opposed to a parting shot, a parting thought, and something that you would like to leave our listeners with.
Wow. Um, if you think you can, or if you think you can't,
Hmm.
you're probably right. And I choose as an active practice to make sure that the glass is half full.
Hmm.
Because if nothing else, life is a lot more fun
Yes.
when the glass is half full. And so if you're naturally pessimistic, and some people are, that's a muscle that you can change. And just like when I told you what was important to me
Hmm.
was making money and I don't think I had much of a chance of doing that, of accomplishing that,
Right.
when I was only focused on that.
Mm.
And so if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you probably can. But if you choose rightly along the way,
Hmm.
it's going to be a much better ride.
Yeah. Well, amen to that. Jim, my friend, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a delightful conversation.
My pleasure. It's gone both ways, and I hope that our friends in Denver, the Mile High City, and
Yes.
Hotlanta are having a wonderful morning. And God bless you.
Yes. Thank you. And same back to you, Jim. It says in Proverbs, which is my favorite book of the Bible, the one who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. So I know I have had a big drink of water today. So thank you so much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this episode if you're online or if you're going to get to the office after your commute on the freeway. Think of us, 5ampodcast.com. And of course, think of the Grampian himself, Jim Tracy. He's an easy man to find online, and his book is easy to find, all of them. So feel free to share this information with your friends or your coworkers. And until next time, we sincerely hope that you seize your day today and that you enjoy those sunrises and sunsets and all those adventures in between. I'm Michael Clausen.